general consensus in the House that a piece of legislation that was first passed in 1876, which reflected the power relationships and the values of that particular time in our history, is hardly the basis upon which we need to go forward in the 21st century in this critical question of the relationship between the Aboriginal people of this country, First Nations, Inuit and Métis, and the government of Canada and the governments of Canada, including the provinces. This motion requires the government to start a process of discussion and negotiation with respect to replacing the Indian Act with a new set of laws, treaties, and understandings which establish a new relationship on a basis of genuine equality.
This joint action plan points the way ahead through specific joint commitments that will effectively change the rules in education, accountability, economic development, and treaty relationships. Why would we wish to change the rules? Because from the rules you set come the results you get. And the incentives buried in the Indian Act self-evidently lead to outcomes that we all deplore. To be sure, our government has no grand scheme to repeal or to unilaterally rewrite the Indian Act. After 136 years, that tree has deep roots. Blowing up the stump would just leave a big hole. So that will be our approach, to replace elements of the Indian Act with more modern legislation and procedures in partnership with provinces and First Nations.
We're coming together in a peaceful, loving way here today to share our songs, our dances, and our drumming with you in celebration that we are idle no more!
Together, all the leaders here gathered, the ministers, members of Parliament, senators, and hundreds of First Nations chiefs are making a solemn and public commitment to our people and to all Canadians to this new beginning, and we must not fail.
And since coming here, yes, some treaties have been signed, many have been broken, many have not been lived up to in spirit.
Minister, when were you first notified of the state of emergency in Attawapiskat?
In Indian bands, the money comes from Ottawa, just dumped by the bucketful, the fire hose full. Let me throw one more angle at you. The amount these chiefs make is actually a secret.
half of the Indian Act is about is land rules and regulations, half of it. And one of the biggest issues we've had, and other bands that are into economic development have, that the federal government, the Indian Act's not business friendly.
And as long as there is a fundamentally paternalist and colonial piece of legislation that drives the power of the government, the power of the minister, the powerlessness of others, then something is wrong.
As being one of being in a colonial situation, because Canada is still using the Indian Act as the main statute or law to control and manage Indians, status Indians or First Nations. And that law goes back to 1876. And although it's been amended from time to time, it's still being used to control and manage Indians, like I said. And that's a colonial relationship. That's what has kept Indians in poverty and kept them from enjoying the benefits of their lands, traditional lands and resources, and even having a say really in how their reserves are managed, because under the Indian Act the minister has 75% discretionary authority over Indians. I've written about Harper launching a First Nations termination plan, and my contention is that the government's objective is to empty out Section 35, of the Constitution, recognizing Aboriginal treaty rights, to emptying that out of any legal or political meaning by getting First Nations to sign on to agreements, basically to self-terminate their rights, to compromise their rights, their Section 35 rights, in exchange for these rights defined in these agreements. And the terms and conditions of those policies, basically turn First Nations into municipalities. If they agree to them, they have to give up their reserves, change their tax status, basically become a municipality within the Canadian Confederation.
Non-native businessmen just shake their head about the level of federal bureaucracy that's involved in doing business deals with First Nations.
Right.